Three, two, one, and we're live. What's up, everybody? It is Saturday night, March 23rd, 8:45, a little bit earlier than my normal time, but happy Saturday. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm sure that some of you guys came straight from Debo's live stream. I know he ended just a couple of moments ago, but yeah, I hope I'm on time. My 5-year-old, almost 6-year-old daughter has now had to be tucked in 3 times tonight. So fingers crossed that she won't be back down tonight, but it's possible. So we'll just have to roll with the punches. But happy Saturday night to you guys. Caro, Midwest Fisherman, what's up? Need to head to bed, you sleepy pie. What are you doing? Frank in the house. Yo, yo. Fish and Fix, thanks for subscribing. Appreciate you, dude. I don't know if you've ever been in here or not, but welcome. Hope you're having a great night. We are this is the late night show. We do drink on this channel and we're open about that. So I've got a fresh bottle of bourbon to crack open. Tell you about it in a sec. Do a couple tasting notes of it. But yeah, Crappy Kev, JP, Lil Tommy, Jermaine, Blink Nation. That's all good, man. You don't have to trust his recommendation. If you don't like what you see, you can get out of here. Or if you like what you see, you can hang out as long as you want. We're going to talk fishing lures primarily tonight. As you can tell, I am a lure junkie myself, of everything in front of me as well as behind me. This entire room is just full of baits, and I like to talk baits. I am a passionate bass fisherman and fly fisherman as well. I live in Colorado. Have been fly fishing my entire life. Did a little bit of bass fishing as a kid, but really got back into it once I moved back to Colorado some 7 or 8 years ago when my oldest daughter was 1. So my YouTube channel is about 4 or 5 years old, but I have really been primarily just doing lives the last year or two, just with the busyness of having 3 young kids and a full-time job. I have not been active in making regular content. I like to say that I'm going to change that, but it's hard to actually do that. But you can catch me live about once a week on here, and I'd love to have you join in when you feel like it. So let's see if I can actually get this bottle of booze open. This is Old Tub. Some of you guys are bourbon drinkers. Some of you are not. So Old Tub is the name of this game. As you guys who have watched know me, I do, even for a cheaper bottle of booze, I do prefer something a little bit higher in proof. You can see this is bottled in bond up top. So what makes this different is that it is unfiltered, but it is high in proof. So you can see here that it's 50 proof or 100 proof, 50% alcohol, which is the standard for bottled in bond. So it's got to be at least 100 proof. That's where this guy comes in. There is a history behind this bourbon, and the fact that it is kind of the base mash bill and profile for kind of what started Jim Beam. I'll read you what it says on the back here. Jim Beam's Old Tub is a bottled in bond Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Just like the original Old Tub, it has not been carbon or chill filtered, only quality screened to remove bits of barrel wood. It's the next best thing to thieving the barrel yourself. You may notice some haziness when you add ice. Think of it as an indicator of true full flavor of this bourbon. That doesn't actually explain the entire. Before Jim Beam bourbon, the Beam family made Old Tub, an unfiltered bonded bourbon. Old Tub was the foundation for which would become the world's #1 bourbon. This limited edition bottle is a tribute to that groundbreaking whiskey. So this is a relatively newer bottle of booze that Jim Beam started bottling and selling on site as kind of a limited release 2 or 3 years ago, but it performed well, so they started selling it on the mass market a couple years ago. I've had it a handful of times. They're right. I am getting a little haziness from that single cube of ice that I've got in here. See, JP knows distillery only product. Yep. Crappy Kev, never heard of it. Well, check it out, man. I think I paid $21 for this, dude. So it's right around that same price point of the Evan Williams um, bottle and bond, or what do they call it? The one you see me drinking frequently that's 100 proof. Um, but I would say this from a flavor profile and standpoint is probably one step above that Evan Williams 100. Um, actually quite like it. It's got a lot of spice on it. And I don't mean heat necessarily. I'm talking about like spices. So, not necessarily just old spice, but little wide variety, cinnamon, maybe cloves, if you will. But yeah, solid. You get a decent amount of oak on there, but I like it. It's not too harsh. I would say that it smells and the initial flavor on the palate comes off definitely like 100 or even a little bit stronger than that, but it fades off the tongue pretty quickly. So I think it would make a great mixer, but also drinks pretty well on its own as well. So, Tom, I don't know what that's about. Sorry about that, dude. You got Liza in the house? What's going on? So yucky. You don't like bourbon or you don't like Old Tub? Or is it the name Old Tub? What are you referring to? That's true, JP. I'm also a fan. I do like slightly sweeter stuff like a Maker's or a Knob Creek, things like that. Even a Four Roses, but I kind of swing both ways when it comes to bourbon profiles. So I'm not terribly picky, but thought I would give Old Tub a try this go around when I was at the liquor store today. Now I do have my tried and true Coors Banquet to go on the side. So um, don't think I'm too much of a booze hound for having both beer and bourbon on me, but I often do. Um, I don't want to chug through the bourbon. Sometimes I've been known to drink 2 or 3 glasses um, on these live streams. I poured a big one this first go around, so the beer helps me kind of slow down a little bit. Liza says bourbon in general, most brown liquors. She prefers Stoli on the rocks. All right. To each their own. My wife is a tequila gal as well, Kara. So I hear you. Megaforce Mark in the house. What's going on, dude? Adam Mahera, I did see um, your comment earlier. You wanted to chat about the classic a bit. Let's do that real quick before I show you just a couple baits that I picked up in the last week or so. The classic is going on in Grand Lake right now. We are 2 of 3 days in, and none other than Justin Hamner, young dude, who has been slaying really last year and this year, a lot this year so far. He is leading and by a lot. He's winning by 5.5 pounds going into Championship Sunday. So he is got a pretty big lead considering, 20 pounds a day is the pace to win it. So he's going to have a relatively bad day tomorrow, and somebody's going to have to whack him. That's in the top 5. That's right in that like 7 pounds or less behind him, but he's got a strong hold and a good lead going in. So happy for him. He's a young dude, does use live scope, but doesn't rely solely on it. So what's unique about the Classic so far is that it has not been a traditional live scope type of tournament. Most guys have it rigged on their boat and are using it, but not to ping a minnow necessarily. People are using traditional techniques. And yes, Hamner is throwing a jerk bait. So of all the people that are doing well in the Classic, technically speaking, he is doing the most classic live scope technique, and he's doing well on it. So good on him. You know, it's no surprise. Everybody should have expected that live scope would probably be a big contributing factor to whoever won the Classic this year and will be for the foreseeable future. But at least it's exciting that he's not just pinging a minnow and strolling, if you will. So Fujita, I think, is in the top 10 going into tomorrow, but probably doesn't have enough of a shot to win it all. You know, it's likely going to be one of the top 3 or 5 guys. It's possible that Hank Cherry could make a run at it, but it is looking like it is Hamner time, as Dave Mercer likes to say. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. I don't know if you guys have been watching Bass Live or not. I have been sporadically. And yeah, Justin Hamner, just like he's been doing all year this year, is super consistent, knows where the fish are, and is catching the right kind of fish. So good on him. Cheers to Justin Hamner and all of you guys. Yeah, Jason Christie moved up too. So cool to see Jason Christie and Hank Cherry actually putting in work. I have got just a handful of new baits. I made a couple trips. I was down in Colorado Springs earlier this week, and so I swung by both Shields and Bass Pro and picked up a few things. So go ahead and show you those, and we can talk about them. It's kind of one bait from a number of different manufacturers. I'll show you what it was the most obvious from what I just flashed at you guys, and that's the Berkley Nessie in the 5. This is very different than the 9 that I've showed you guys before. I don't have any in the 7. I have the 9, which is a bigger bait. This thing weighs 2 ounces and is 9 inches. So a full-size glide bait profile. I did pick 2 up initially when I bought them. So one of those is going to be given away sooner than later. But when I was at Shields, they had the Nessie in the 5 and the 7. And honestly, this 5 seemed interesting. It is a small bait, right? 11 grams. So it's 3/8 of an ounce, roughly. Not quite small enough to be thrown on BFS, but it's definitely a spinning or light bait caster setup that you throw on like a jerk bait setup. Really small profile here. You know, you can see relative to my hand, little dude. And you're going to work it a lot like you would a jerk bait or a subsurface walking bait. You know, what's interesting about the Nessie is that it has this really steep angled joint. And this is in the color pattern of a juvenile trout. So pretty happy about that. Yeah, they just call it rainbow trout, but should be interesting to see this concept in a really small profile and see how it performs. But I'm not mad about it. It was $8. So I think the smaller ones go for $8, the bigger ones for $10. And you know, even if it only holds up to a couple of fish catches. Totally worth trying. So I kind of couldn't help it. While I was there, I also got, I don't know why I put this in the kind of the same category, but the 6 cents Panorama, Jermaine, 6 cents. I said 6 cents, Jermaine. Are you still there? The Panorama in the smallest size, or maybe they make it in a 2-inch, but this is the 3.5. As of right now, I've only got it in bigger size. This is the 6.5. This is kind of a full-sized bait and one that would likely need to be fished a different way. So the 6.5, I will probably be throwing on either a shaky head or on, sorry, I thought I heard my daughter for a second there. Or even on a Texas rig, maybe on a bigger drop shot. But this little dude, the 3.5, this is a drop shot bait through and through. I mean, I don't see myself Texas rigging this bait. I could see myself maybe throwing it on the back of a tiny chatterbait or swim jig, but it's such a thin profile that I don't think it's going to fit really well on a jig head. You know, I think this thing is meant to be fished rigged sideways if you're throwing an EWG style hook on it, but I think you can nose hook this thing no problem when drop shotting it. So that should be pretty cool. I might throw a screw lock in there and nose hook it, or just nose hook it straight. But smaller size Panorama is one that kind of appeals to me. And there's a ton of action in it. Very wiggly, super soft plastic. So the smaller size Panoramas, I think, appeal to me a little bit more than the bigger ones. And I didn't really realize that until I saw them in person at Shields and was like, oh, wait a second. So these are not super cheap. I want to say they're like $8 to $10 a pack, and you get 6 of them in a pack. So not a cheap bait, but it is a newer and cool bait nonetheless. So I'm kind of excited about that. And then one of my all-time favorite baits, I talk about this very frequently and did on my last live stream because I just re-upped on a couple of, productive colors for me, like that. That's not the Glacier, that's the Glimmer Blue. And this is the Arkansas Shiner. But I didn't quite realize that they had a Morning Dawn color in this. I don't know if it's exclusive to retailers as opposed to online retailers, but seeing that they had a Morning Dawn made me think, oh, that's going to be primo for smallie fishing when drop shotting, even in clear water. So I fish the Baby Z2 a lot, especially on a drop shot, but also on a micro chatterbait, and things like even on a Ned rig. So as a drop shot bait, it's in my top 5 drop shot baits of all time. It's fantastic, especially around bedding fish, but absolutely love the Baby Z2 a lot more than I like the standard size Z2, but very good bait. And when I saw that they had it in that color, I kind of couldn't help it. And then I think lastly, while I was there, they had a bargain bin of sorts, and check that out. $2.96 for some flatworms in the bigger size, the 4.25-inch flatworm in that natural shad color, which is a great producing color. I'm not mad about it whatsoever. And for $2.96, I hate that they switched to a bag that you have to rip in order to get into, but it is what it is. It's not like I'm going to hang this up. I'm going to fish with this sooner than later. It's going to go in that same lineup with the Baby Z2. But these baits at most retailers go for $8.99 a pack. It's probably a blessing in disguise that this doesn't want to open easily for me. Even after I ripped it, it doesn't want, it's like I didn't rip it far enough to be able to peel it open and show you. I guess it's just a sign that I'm not supposed to get max scent on my hands right now. And I'm not mad about that. But the flatworm is an excellent producer, has been great to me for the last 3 years or more. And yeah, JP, I hear you. Adam, I hear you. Yeah, I should have bought more packs, but I wasn't really trying to buy a lot of stuff when I was in there. Um, and I already have flatworms in a few different colors, so it's not like I needed to stock up on them necessarily. Um, I thought about buying, 5 packs and giving some away to you guys, but sorry, I was being a little bit selfish in the moment. So then there are a few things that I am missing right now, but that's okay. A couple things that I bought from Bass Pro. Crush City Freeloader. You saw me open these maybe 2 months ago, something like that. I bought just 1 pack of them initially. I'll show you what appeals to me about this, aside from the fact that it's been a super high producing bait so far this season for the pros that work with Rapala. Mostly Jacob Wheeler and Dustin Connell. But the Freeloader is a fluke style bait crossed with a chatterbait trailer. Awesome for, say, that technique that is pinging a minnow, but also as a chatterbait trailer. When it's standing straight up, it doesn't fold over, but it does have a ton of wiggle and action to it. It is a very soft plastic, and it also has a slit in the belly so that you can rig an EWG hook on it if you want to. So awesome drop shot bait, great chatterbait trailer, great on a straight jig head. So Adam says he has the Mayor and is going to use it with the 6 cents treble head. Well, that's not a bad idea, but the Mayor is, I think, the one out of the bunch that appeals to me the least right now, just because I do think that the paddle tail swim bait market has gotten extremely saturated over the last handful of years, and is one that I have too many at this point, and a handful of which are kind of my tried and true bigger producers. And so there are a lot that I don't even use, especially some that are JDM baits, and I have to go out of my way to remind myself to throw them. But I find myself going back to some of those OGs, and those are kind of the standard, either the Kitech or the Z-Man diesel minnows or the 3-inch minnows, the Megabass Spark Shad. I haven't really thrown the Hazadong Shad as much as I should, because I tend to throw the Kitech Easy Shiner. But there are a ton more than that, and we could talk about paddle tails for a while. But last bait that I did pick up in this small little haul from 2 different stores is the new XPS Stare Down, which is essentially their version of a 110 Junior. I already talked about and showed you guys the XPS Square Bill, which looks awesome and is on sale right now. Less than $5 a bait. So I want to say these jerk baits are more like $8 a pop. So not super cheap, but also not nearly as expensive as their competitors. And so this color here is called lemon meringue, and it's gorgeous. It's a matte finish, bone pearl, and I like it. It's a little dude at I think 100 millimeters. Not quite. They say 3 7/8 inches. Size 8 hooks on it. Weighs 11 grams. So 3/8 of an ounce. Little dude. This is going to fit into the same category. Look at the size of those eyes, though. Same category as like the Vision 110 Junior or the Dual Hardcore 95, which I talk about somewhat frequently. The reason that I put both of those into the same category is that these two dudes are small body jerkbaits with 3 hooks on them. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up next to it, and you'll see that this is the same size profile. A little bit bigger than the 95, but same exact size as the 110 Junior. Bigger eyes on this dude. So kind of curious. Another bait in this exact same size range that it reminds me of that I do not have but is on my radar is the 6 Sense Provoke 97. That silent in the Provoke 97 is what really appeals to me more so than the X. I do prefer a silent jerkbait over a rattling one if I've already got kind of the same thing in a rattling version. I do want a little bit of variety. As you guys can see, I have a lot of jerkbaits in this same size range. And then I've got 2 boxes of full-size jerkbaits. These are just JDM jerkbaits. So ranging from Megabass to Shimano to Dual Hardcore to Jackal, Lucky Craft, IMA, and more. And damn it. And those are just my JDM jerkbaits. So whole bunch more. It was called the Stare Down. I don't know about the Look Down. You know, Bass Pro Shops has released an entire line of new XPS hard baits and soft baits. So good on them. It seems that the stuff that they're putting out now is of higher quality than anything that they've really done in the past. So I am kind of excited about that, and we'll try a bunch of them. I'll tell you that much. You like the new BPS packaging? Me too. Yeah, speaking of not just the Swerve, but they came out with another glide bait that bridges the gap between, say, their old glide bait that was more of an S waver with like a Bait Sanity head, almost like the Bait Sanity Antidote, I think it's called. And so you get like this hybrid type of body, but they also made the Swerve with a lip that is a wake style glide bait, which is pretty sweet. So not mad about that. Yeah, the new plopping bait. I almost picked one up the other day. It is very fat. Its body is significantly bigger than what you get out of a Whopper plopper or what's the Berkeley version? I should know because I've got them, but drop it in the comments. I will say that the new XPS plopping style bait has that hard tail like the Berkeley Chapo. I beat you to it. Fishing Fix. You were right there, dude. Same hard tail as the Chapo, but yeah, much fatter body and heavier. You know, they're 120 size, weighs almost 2 ounces. So it's a significantly bigger profile. than what you get out of the Chapo 120 or the Whopper Plopper 120. Does the Whopper Plopper come in a 120? I think it's just the 130 and then the 110. But the 110 Whopper Plopper is like the same as the Chapo 120 in being like an ounce. And then it's not until you step up to the Plopper 130 that's like an ounce and a half or something like that. So the XPS in the 120 is bigger than the Plopper 130. Much fatter bait. It's huge. So kind of cool. And Adam talking about the comeback shad. Yeah, that's interesting. It is. I didn't remember the XPS swim bait from Bass Pro. You know, then again, I was not an avid bass fisherman when that all went down, but I didn't recall that being a 6-inch bait. Now I know that it was kind of the OG harnessed swim bait, boot tail swim bait before the mag draft. And so it is back in production. I've heard mixed things that it is not a super consistent swimmer. If you guys watch or follow Bass Fishing HQ, he talked about that bait recently, just like a week ago, along with the mag draft, the dangerous swim bait, a few others. And he also mentioned that it has an inconsistent swimming action, that it's kind of, you know, some are good, some are bad. And that's a little bit unfortunate, but I think you're paying less than $10 a bait for each one. And they've got great color patterns. That's one of the awesome things about the new Bass Pro baits is that they've got some sweet color patterns. You see all of that color shift and flash on this square bill and a matte finish on this square bill, this craw color, as well as that jerk bait that I just showed you in the stare down. So Adam is right. The Chaos Shad is what their plopper style bait is. Big Malone, the plopper 190. Maybe it weighs over 2 ounces. I've never gotten my hands on a plopper 190. Never really saw the point. I don't fish for muskie. I know that that's what the bait was initially created for, but yeah, it's probably a little bit more in line with that. Maybe even fatter than the 190. Just not as long, obviously. It's 120 in length, but it's a super fat ass bait. So I might just get one so I can show you guys in comparison to, say, the Chapo and the Plopper, Plopper 130 and the Chapo 120. But it's crazy. So Adam says it's not consistent at all. Originals were just as inconsistent. Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, that kind of turns me away from it a little bit. I do prefer a bait that is going to swim consistent straight out of the pack. I don't want to have to weed through dead baits just to find a good one, only to have it last for a few fish and then start the whole process over, right? I'd rather, either throw something that I already know, like the mag draft, or the Bariki shad, or the Beast Coast Miyagi swimmer, something that is predictable, or even go with the Imakatsu stealth swimmer, or the Owner Burrican swimmer. That all kind of have their own place in terms of just how speed sensitive they are, where they want to swim in the water column, things like that. So I don't necessarily see a reason for me to throw that comeback shad necessarily. But Digs Outdoors, what's up, dude? Bink Nation. I thought it was Blink Nation. Sorry for calling you that a number of times earlier, but if I could only choose one, it would be the plopper. And part of it is the durability of the body as well as the tail. So the body is a much thicker plastic and will take a beating a lot better. You can accidentally cast it onto rocks. I like to parallel riprap banks a lot. and also fish a plopper near lay down trees and parallel to docks and things like that. So occasionally when fishing rocks or docks, I will make an errant cast, as we all do. A Chapo does not take the abuse well. Um, so that's the unfortunate reality to it is a thin walled hollow plastic that I think the thin walls give it a slightly different frequency and a higher pitch sound, which is a good thing for the most part. Um, but the Chapo what or the Whopper Plopper was the OG. It takes a beating a lot better. It's more durable, and that softer tail I think performs better, especially at slower speeds. So that said, I don't throw a plopper or a chopo at really slow speeds very often. Maybe if I'm fishing calm water at nighttime, I will, but typically I like it at that medium fast speed where it's got almost the loudest speed that it can create without sounding too high pitched. Um, so Whopper Plopper is my answer. Final answer. Submitting it. Okay. The tail is inline, unlike the plopper. Yeah, and that's what I don't like. Um, is that the Chaos Shad has more of the Chapo style tail or the original Whopper Plopper style tail. It does not fit in flush, doesn't tuck into the body, but has that separation where you're going to catch weeds a lot more easily. And I don't like that. So, I've gotten picky about that because the Plopper 110, no, Plopper 110 and 75 and even the 60 all have that newer style tail. You've got me tempted to pull them out now at this point. Um, Dude, I lost my Plopper 110 this past year. Super sad about it, but that's all right. So let me show you the OG 130. You can see has this tail that is inline, has that separation, is flat. The 90 was the same way, okay? However, once you go to the 110, you'll notice that it is designed around there and will seamlessly fit inside the body, as will the 75. And I'm just grabbing random ones here. Whereas the Chapo, even at the 75 size, has that flat tail, as does, I think this is the 105 size. All sizes of the Chapo have that flat tail, like the OG plopper. The newer ploppers have that inline that kind of goes into the body, sits flush, doesn't pick up weeds as easily. I like the action of it a little bit better, but that's me. Chapos for me, river to sea, spirals like crazy, line twists from hell. Interesting, Bruce. It'll only spiral if it does catch grass. Um, but if you're fishing around really grassy places, you need to throw a swivel in front of the Chapo, or the Whopper Plopper. Okay. Yeah, I would agree. Guggen Revolver. I have tried one before and it was horrific. I'll say that. Big waste of money. Don't do it. I would say all Guggen hard baits. Do not do it. JP, thanks for the feedback. I've been meaning to throw the Birkin swimmer. I think I picked them up last year for the first time. Picked up a couple of them, and specifically well, I guess I've got one of each size. But what appeals to me about these is that they make them in slightly different sizes. So here's a 5.4 and here's a 4.4. So smaller than what you'd get with a mag draft or otherwise. Even the 5.4 seems significantly smaller than a 6-inch mag draft, but it's going to weigh almost the same. This is 32 grams with the 5.4 and 23 grams with the 4.4. So you get a denser but smaller body. And it can be swum at a slower pace, which I appreciate because the mag draft for me is a speed sensitive bait, needs to be fished kind of medium speed, bordering on medium fast for me. I like to fish a little bit slower in general, but yeah, that has bothered me a little bit. Is baits that are a little bit too speed sensitive. So ones that can be fished slower, I am into the idea of for sure. Let me try and catch up on your comments. Julie says, I throw ploppers all summer and they catch largies, smallies, and pike, and mine is still in one piece. Yep, I am right there with you. My fish kind of caught on to the plopper. They've done that with a number of baits that I have had a tremendous amount of success on. So, like 5 years ago, the plopper was my number one producing bait. Then I transitioned. Chatterbait ended up being a huge producer for me for a number of years, and then kind of turned off last year. That has been the case with a number of baits for me. So, Adam only throws the 130 plopper. That's kind of crazy. That said, I think my PB came on a 130 plopper. So, who am I to say that that's a bad idea? But you think it has a better body balance than the others? Maybe. What I will say is that one thing that I love about a plopper, same goes for a Chapo, but I kind of like it better about a plopper, is the stop and go capabilities of it, right? So cast it out, kill it, let it sit there for like 5 seconds and let the ripples almost fully dissipate, and then start fishing it, get it up to speed, and then every 5 seconds or so, so a few times throughout the retrieve, stop it for like a half a second to a second, and then get it going again. I've gotten a lot of bass to bite on the stop and go right after I start it back up, then they'll whack it. So if you don't do that, you probably ought to give it a go. Um, yeah, it's pretty awesome. Hmm. Mark says I'll slow roll the plopper, then rip it, and I get a bite. Yeah, so the rip technique can be awesome. It is just kind of a pull, wind up the slack, pull, wind up the slack. Um, but I find that that's going to be for either super aggressive fish or pike or muskie, right? Um, unless it's super hot water, you've got aggressive bass, it's the right time of day. So keep that in mind. But yeah, Justin, I'm not sure which tip you're talking about, but no problem if that was me or if it was somebody else from the uh the comment section. Yeah, you do need to grab some swivels. I like the Spro power swivels. Those are probably my favorite ones to throw in front of a plopper. Um, or other baits if they tend to twirl. So yeah, keep that in mind. You don't want to have to deal with a ton of line twist. And if you're dealing with that, you need to throw a swivel on there for sure. JP, I'm with you. I'm with you, dude. True words. Yeah, you don't have to slow it down. You just need to be aware of where its fast speed is. So I would say a medium fast to fast retrieve, but you really can't burn a plopper. Otherwise, it will get too high pitch of a sound and it will start to roll. Not roll all the way around and start spiraling, um, but it will turn over and swim kind of sideways at you. So you got to be aware of that. If you're fishing it slow, it'll just kind of have a duk, 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 duk. If you start fishing it medium speed, it'll kind of have that. And that's almost there. You want to fish it a little bit faster to where you get that loudest sound possible before then it goes super high pitch and then it'll turn on its side. So, you know, fish it however you want, whatever's most productive for you. But I have found that the most productive for me is that medium fast to fast retrieve where it's making the loudest, deepest sound possible without slow rolling it. I don't slow roll a plopper style bait. Adam says, I can't think of any other river to sea product besides the plopper that I really like. What about the Rover, dude? What about the square bill, the Biggie, or the Biggie Smalls? And do you or do you not like the S Waver? So they also make a wild, big ass popper or pencil popper, if you will. This right here is the Bubble Walker 120. Their poppers were some of the originals that had that cupped face with the slits in the cheeks, kind of like the Megabass poppers. And so that's not a bad bait. You know, the Bubble Walker or the Bubble Popper, which is a smaller bait. And then the old Rover is not a bad walking bait at all. And they make it in a couple sizes. I prefer the 128 size. Very loud knocker on it. Has that cupped face and has the 3 big hooks. They're slightly different sized hooks on them. So you get a bigger hook in the middle than you do on the back or on the front. I think the middle and the back are the same size, but you get that dual chambers. And Michael Bradley says, yeah, the Bullywa frog as well. That's a good bait too. I don't think I have my frog box handy on me. I think it's across the room, but the Bullywa is a good one as well. So yeah, Adam, I think you're probably missing a couple there if you say that the plopper is the only river to sea bait that you like. I understand if you don't like the S Waver. I think it has an inconsistent action that I don't really love. I will say I've fished the Gancraft Jointed Claw 178 recently. I have it in the floating version, so that could play a factor. I probably do need to tune it to slow sink a little bit, but I did not love it. It was doing some weird stuff on me, and I feel like I need to fiddle with the bait in order to get it to do what I want to do, and I'm not super happy about that. I want a glide bait that is going to perform or going to impress me straight out of the pack. So of course you get a depth slide swimmer, even the new Spro Chad Shad. Or the DRT Tiny Clash, all have somewhat predictable actions and impressive actions straight out of the pack. So the jointed claw, I was kind of surprised by. Um, I think I fished it once or twice last year, but didn't notice quite as much as I did the other day when I was out there. So that was a little bit sad or unfortunate to find out. But Travis Stearman, we are talking about a little bit of everything, but congrats that you got to go to the Classic. That is sweet. We talked about the Classic a little bit tonight. Feel free to give us a little bit of your feedback. Do you think Justin Hamner is going to win tomorrow? Feels like he is. He's got a huge lead, but do you also kind of get the same feeling that this year's Classic or this tournament is a little bit less about live scope and live scope techniques as much as it is utilizing live scope to find areas um, and then determine techniques. I think, as we were saying, I think Hamner is probably the only one that's using live scope and using a jerk bait in a more traditional live scope type of way. But it feels a little bit, even though it's kind of a shit. I don't want to say it's a shit lake, but um, you would hope that it's a more heavy hitting type of tournament instead of like scrapping for 20 pounds a day. A lot of guys catching 1 and 2 pounders for the majority of the day, and having a kicker that's a 5 pounder, in addition to a bunch of 2 and 3 pounders that kind of fills their bag. But you haven't watched any of the live coverage to make an opinion. All right, but you were there at the weigh-in or what? JP says he's with Adam. Ploppers are really the only river to sea bait that he throws. He doesn't throw them often. Yeah, I'm kind of past um, my plopper heyday, if you will, but I do throw some river to sea baits from time to time. I would not say that that's like their only good bait. Sure, it's their bread and butter, along with the S waiver, thanks to Tactical Bassin, but I don't even think the S waiver is an awesome bait. Adam says the Savage Gear Shine Glide, Shine Glide is his inexpensive glide bait of choice. I agree. I do throw the Shine Glide, not as much as I thought I would. I threw it more than others when I was first getting into glide baits, but now I'm really trying to understand what the strengths are of various glide baits that are out there. So I have the Shine Glide in the Magnum size and the regular size. Um, like them both, but I throw that standard size. I even have it in the smaller size, I think. But yeah, I do like that bait as well. I'm with you on that. Yeah, maybe. Probably not user error so much as just time committed to the actual bait. So I hear you. Bink Nation. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of what I've gotten about this classic, which I can appreciate, right? It's a tougher lake with true pre-spawn early techniques, right? They're not bed fishing or offshore fishing, and therefore just using live scope to target suspended fish, deep fish, or bed fish, um, and using super subtle techniques. They're power fishing mostly, but using live scope to find the fish and to identify proper areas. So, pretty cool. I have not tried either of those baits, so I hear you. You might be a little bit crazy to have $400+ on 2 rods, but dude, go for it. Hope you wreck them. Travis, what did you find at the expo? Anything that you are particularly excited about? Um, I'm kind of curious to hop on Tackle Warehouse like Debo did earlier tonight and go through some of the Tackle Warehouse releases for the classic, but um, I will say that perhaps the geek rack baits, in addition to the tube from Great Lakes Finesse, are probably the ones that jumped out at me the most. And we could talk about those baits in a little bit more depth if you want to. But yeah, Adam, you're not crazy. Do it, dude. The 5-inch Shine Glide, cast and chill. That is a good bait. I haven't had a tremendous amount of success on it, but for a small glide bait, uh, I like it. And I don't throw small glide baits a lot. I primarily throw medium-sized glide baits. I have a few bigger ones. Really just the Magnum Shine Glide, the Ice Slide 262, maybe a couple of others that are like north of 4 ounces. But I most of my glide baits are in that like 2 to 4 ounce, 2 to 3 ounce range. Yeah, I hear you. So I guess 20 pounds is good for that lake, but it's weird and kind of sad that we're talking like that. I feel like a Bassmaster Classic should be um, a crush fest, if you will, where the dudes that are performing well should be whacking them and and catching big fish as well. So it just, I guess next year is going to be a little bit different. The Classic will be in Texas, and it's possible that we'll see that. But it is what it is. You got the 50-year anniversary Rick Klung Rico. Um, Now, is the 50th anniversary of Rick Klung or the 50th anniversary of the Rico? That is a good question because Rick Klung has been around that long, but I don't know if the Rico has been, dude. You've been to all three of the classics at Grand. That's pretty cool, man. The Hypno Toad from John Suckup. Interesting. I have not heard of that bait yet. So I don't even know what to say. But just like Adam, I'm jealous that you were there and got to see some of that stuff. That's pretty sweet, dude. Yeah, it's a banquet beer, dude. I drink the banquet all the time. I prefer the stubby bottle as well over a can. And yes, I'm double fisting. Drinking Old Tub bourbon and Coors Banquet beer. So cheers, everybody. Not sure if you're drinking tonight. Um, Still have the plug in this bourbon. I swear I'm not drunk yet. But I could get drunk on this. Gator's Adventures, Puff Puff. I think you said something earlier tonight. Did you not? Let me try and scroll back through the comments. You asked a question, and I meant to get around to it, but I missed it. Let's see here. Shouldn't be that hard to find. Gators, Gators, Gators. Oh, there you showed up. Puff, sip, or gulp. So I assume that means weed, liquor, or beer. I used to be a puffer. Now I'm kind of, as you can see, I'm halfway in between. I do not smoke weed anymore. Turned out it was bad for me, bad for my brain. I have an addictive personality, so I I was doing it for the wrong reasons for too long. Um, like definitely too long. And I'm from Colorado, so uh, I grew up. I smoked weed at like 18, moved away for college, was already kind of into weed at that point, smoked throughout college, and then developed kind of high anxiety and used it for the wrong reasons for a number of years. And it turned into a bad habit where I felt like I needed it to sleep well, to eat well, to avoid anxiety and or sickness in the way of nausea and other things like that. But eventually, it got to the point where it was detrimental to certain relationships with people, was affecting my ability to be honest, and had to kind of I had a difficult conversation with my wife, needed to stop. And that was maybe a year and a half ago or so. So if you were to go back and watch some of my old videos, you'll probably be able to tell that I was stoned in some of those videos, even old live streams. But nope, I drink alcohol, just not all that frequently. Um, these live streams is like one of the times where I drink pretty regularly. You know, I'll have a few or a handful of drinks throughout a live stream. Otherwise, I drink maybe once or twice a week, and we'll just have a couple of drinks. Unless I'm out with some buddies or it's a special occasion, then I'll have a few more. But um, I'm not a big drinker. I like beer and I like bourbon, and it's primarily bourbon. I don't drink cocktails. I drink bourbon, neat or on the rocks, and I drink beer. I do like craft beer more than I like light beer. So, you know, if I'm feeling cheap, I'll get Banquet in, like, I got an 18 pack recently, but yeah, that's my honest truth to you, Gators. So, I know that was probably more than you bargained for, but there you go, dude. Puff puff. I'm going to just straight pass it. You're welcome to smoke it around me, but I'm not going to join in. I'm past that point in my life, dude. So I respect that that's your preference. No problem here. You can even do it around me, but I'm not going to participate any longer. I used to be the one to peer pressure other people into joining me. I would be the one providing it. Um, I loved it. So yeah. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. No hangover from the weed. I hear you. I'm with you, but thanks, guys. Yeah, it was legal in Colorado, perhaps, first. Not just before Illinois, but maybe the first state, period. Dude, digs outdoors, none of the above. Caffeine addict, yep. Ooh, with a Marlboro. All right, well, aren't we all a little bit of no, we're not all, but I do have a little bit of a nicotine, um, situation going on as well. So, I used to smoke. Then I vaped. Now I'm on the Zins. I never dipped or chewed tobacco. You could probably just tell based on, it's not like I'm digging in my lip all that often, but it's there. You might be able to see based on how I favor or how I'm talking, but it's there. I like a little drip of caffeine and nicotine as well, so I'm with you on that. You stopped drinking 5 years ago. You drank way too much. All right. Congrats. Cheers. I shouldn't say cheers, but congrats on the recognition and the transition off of alcohol, dude. I'm exactly the opposite as you in deciding or realizing that it was too much with the weed. So my THC is your alcohol. We all have our vices. I'm with you, dude. Lactose, gluten, alcohol intolerant. Shoo! You've leaned on cannabis for ailments. Yep. Into a bit of concentrates. Well, I will say, um, be a little bit careful with that because as you get into concentrates, whether it's vaping or hitting a piece, what is the technical term? I should know. Um, but I never quite got into concentrates other than vaping like live resin. But as you get into that higher dosage stuff, you're going to develop a much higher tolerance, and that's going to fuck with your head quite a bit more. So keep that in mind. Just be aware of how much you're using, where your tolerance is at, whether or not you feel like you need it. Sorry to preach to the choir, guys. We got 25 people in here, and we're talking about drugs and alcohol. So my bad, guys. I'm drinking alcohol. You guys may or may not be smoking, but Travis is getting us back on topic. Your biggest surprise at the classic was the Icon Bass boat that had a $135,000 sticker price. Holy shit, dude. Um, that is a very expensive boat, dude. Good Lord. Respect. Bruce, well done. 135 grand for a bass boat. See, that is the main reason that I am a bank angler for now. Um, is that it's a totally different rabbit hole that you go down, right? It's like I'm passionate about baits, right? Uh, I'm happy to talk about different techniques. Oh, as I get a hook stuck in my carpet. Um, so we got a Kitech with one of the core tackle tush swim bait heads in there. We got a Megabass Spark Shad with the same rigged in there. We got a Mag Draft 6-inch freestyle swim bait. We got a Cool Shad 8-inch. And we got a Z-Man Molotron with the wedge tail. Despite all of the tackle that I own, which is a shitload, right? Way too much. More than I do need or could need. It is all put together. It's probably less than a bass boat would be. So there's a reason that I'm a bank angler. And it is mostly financial, also just practicality. Like I live near low horsepower lakes, smaller uh, highland reservoirs, and things like that. So I do not need a boat. I would prefer it if I could have a boat with live scope and a trolling motor. I would do it, but I don't necessarily have the garage space or the need for it or the time to be able to put into uh, justifying it. So, to each their own, but 135 grand, you better be a tournament fisherman. You better be getting some of that paid for. Um, it can't all be out of pocket. I mean, who has that kind of money to drop on a boat? That's ridiculous. Damn, Travis. That's why it's so important for guys like Tyler to show that you can fish from the bank. You can. And I do frequently, probably 3 to 5 times a week. And I catch them on a wide variety of techniques, and I like to switch it up, right? I mean, that's a big part of what I do here is experiment with new things, show you guys what works really well for me, what I'm interested in and why. Um, I don't just have a boat and then keep it simple in terms of the techniques I use. I'm kind of the opposite. I fish from the bank and I like to mix it up and throw a wide variety of stuff. So, we're all a little bit different, right? But I have a rough monthly budget in terms of what I spend on fishing gear, and it's not a monthly payment on a boat. I'll tell you that much. There would be like a small mortgage on a house. So no, thank you. I own my cars outright. I have a mortgage on my house. That is it. I'm not in debt. Um, I have 3 young kids. I don't need storage space for a boat. I don't need a giant payment for a boat. I'm not looking for that. Now, potentially sometime in the future, if I have the space, if I have the time, if I have the excess money, might I be into that? Perhaps, but I would likely buy it outright. I'm not going to finance it. Um, so yeah, Travis says if 12-year-old Travis was told that he needed 135K to fish, he would have never started. One of the very one of the many reasons I don't golf is I was told it was too expensive. Um, yeah. Now golf is not too expensive per se. It's just a different ball game, right? I mean, you pay a certain amount to get in to buy your equipment, uh, and then you're set, but you're paying per round as opposed to paying annually for a fishing license. So it kind of depends on how frequently you play, right? Like I was invited to play this afternoon and couldn't because I was in charge of my kids. But I play a handful of times per year. I do enjoy golf, but I've had the same set of clubs for 10 plus years, and and I'm willing to pay that 70 to 150 bucks a round a few times a year, handful of times a year, uh, to enjoy the time out on the course with my buddies, with my relatives, um, because it's time that I won't get back or be able to spend otherwise. It's bonding time, right? I don't go play golf by myself, so again, to each their own. It's kind of like skiing. A lot of people wouldn't get into skiing because it is crazy expensive, right? A set of skis and bindings is going to cost you on average 12 to 1500 bucks. Boots another 500 bucks, and then a ski pass 1000 bucks a year. Um, plus maybe lessons if you're getting your kids into it. And I'm trying to teach all 3 of my kids to ski right now. So I am constantly looking for ways to shortcut or find cost cutting measures to get them into the sport without it costing an arm and a leg. Um, it's tricky, dude. Yeah, I mean, raising children is an expensive deal. So, of course, Frank was in here the second I started. He's been nowhere to be found for the last hour. Um, but Frank knows what it is to raise children and how expensive it can be. Let me catch up on comments. See, I've thought about that kind of thing. But then again, in my third garage here, I've got a 1977 Chevy Camaro. It's a family heirloom of sorts, just sitting in the garage, where a boat could be sitting, but is not. So you play that game, if you will, of just what is worth it. I don't know. I don't necessarily want to give away the family heirloom. It was my mom's when it was brand new in 77. So for me to have it now and then sell it just for the sake of clearing out space in the garage to put a shitty boat in there, uh, I feel like that would be wrong, you know? Yep. 7 to 10 inch worms swam slow on the bottom, look like the back of a big shed. Um, I don't necessarily disagree. A 6.8-inch swim bait, like a Kitech 6.8, isn't all that much bigger than, say, a 7-inch Magnum Ultra Vibe speed worm, right? Um, a swimming worm, which I have close by. I just don't know exactly which of these bags it's in. You guys know that last summer I went to Florida and there she is, the Magnum Ultra Vibe speed worm. Fantastic bait. So let's go ahead and compare side by side. Oh, it's the same size. So it kind of depends on how you rig it. But from a size standpoint, pretty much the same. I just throw the Ultra Vibe speed worm on, a lighter weighted Texas rig with a pegged weight. Same goes for the Z-Man Turbo Fatties, which is a 6-inch bait, but kind of a fatter swimming worm. Great bait. Different levels money-wise to all hobbies. I'm with you on that. Just rent a boat a few times to see if you like it. Yep. I will probably do that at some point, but of course it's not going to be rigged the way that I want it to be. Dustin says he raced karts from 98 to 2005. Wish he had that money back. He'd be on the Elite Series. Take it easy, dude. Everything fun is expensive. I'm with you, Oregon Small Jaw. No doubt about it. Raising kids is hard. I'm praising God that my almost 6-year-old, she turned 6 in 2 weeks, that she hasn't been down here during this live stream. We've been on for an hour and 17 minutes. Somehow she's asleep. I put her down 3 times in the hour before I went live. She moved out of her crib and into a quote unquote big girl bed when she was 3 years old. It's been almost 3 years, 2.5 years since she's been in that bed. And it's been a nightmare ever since. So we're probably going to take a different approach with our son, who just turned 3 last month, or this month, just 2.5 weeks ago. I might leave him in the crib for a while. You know what I'm saying? Skiing has gotten crazy expensive. Um, I completely agree. Part of that is that conglomerates like Vail and Altera have taken over and are buying up every single mountain. Um, so it's just part of the game. It's unfortunate, but comes with the territory. And past prices are going up by 10% every year. It is what it is. So Camaro is life. Keep that car. That's what I'm about to do. So did I call your boat shit? I might have been referring to it as cheap, but no, dude, my 77 is yellow. Maybe I'll show you a picture of it. It's like dude, it's gorgeous. Let's see if I can find it for you. Of course, in 2020, I was taking so many pictures of baits. I don't know if you guys followed my Instagram. Followed, should I say? Um, but on Instagram, I used to post like twice a day, every day for a good 4 years or so. Got like 15,000 followers and Had a good time on it until the algorithm changed and really wanted short videos, and I was not as into that. So let me see if I can find a picture of my Camaro real quick for you guys. 2021. Let's see here. Here's a picture of my 8-year-old like 3 or 4 years ago when she caught one of her first bass and she was gripping it, dude. She was not super happy about it, but she loved catching the fish nonetheless. Um, I thought I'd be able to find a picture of the car a little bit easier than this. Here it's in the background of this bait picture, but it's not solely of the car itself. It's like I took the girls to the playground a number of times that year, and they used to love taking rides in the car. So should be easy to find, but for whatever reason, it's not right now. Here's a bait that we talked about already. Maybe we didn't talk about this, but the Bellows Shad just came out with an elastomer version, which I'm kind of curious about, right? Um, it's a floating bait. However, all right, here she is. 77 yellow Camaro. Look at those rims. Beauty. Okay. Sorry that it took so long for me to find that, but that's the car that I have sitting in my third garage instead of a boat. And it's probably going to stay that way for a while. I'm a bank fisherman at heart. And that was my grandma's car. So I'm not going to sell it just to get a whatever boat. It's a 77 beautiful Camaro. Gators had a 68 Camaro for a few months. Okay. JP, I'm with you. The Bellows Gill for me in the 21 and 22 seasons were it was a fantastic bait for me. Last year was more like a cover scat type of year for me. Um, but I've kind of taken a year off of the Bellows Gill, so I'm gonna jump back on it this year, especially on some bodies of water that are newer to me. Um, and I'm gonna see how the fish react, especially because I haven't fished for these fish. I assume they will murder that thing. The Bellows Gill was fantastic for me for like 2 years straight, and I absolutely love it. Weightless Texas rig, shallow water, flip it out there, let it sit, pull it, let it fall. Um, Not all that different than you would fish a Senko. So good. And then once they stopped biting that, the cover scat kind of transitioned to the bait in that category for me. So I have discovered a couple of new bodies of water that are convenient to me that I hope and also expect that those same baits will produce really well for me. A chatterbait has been the deal for me on those bodies of water so far this season, which is super early, right? The water is freezing cold where I am. So I did have a cool grandma, Michael. I'm with you 1,000%, dude. Now her son was a mechanic, so yeah, my uncle, that was his deal. Cover scat. I prefer the bigger cover scat. They make it in a 2.8, a 3.5, and a 4-inch. The 4-inch cover scat is my preferred size. I also like the 3.5, but the 2.8 is too small for me. I only catch small fish on it like 90% of the time. As I size up, I find that I'm culling out the smaller fish. So the 4-inch cover scat will catch the fewest fish, but still catch a lot and primarily big fish. So as I get to the 4-inch cover scat, I'm catching 3+ pound fish the vast majority of the time. And I like to use a 5-aught hook on it. Now, I prefer an EWG if I can get away with it, but depending on how much grass there is, I will throw an offset EWG style hook. So it kind of depends on the bait that you're using, but the cover scat is a really fat bait. Let me see if I can show you real quick. I'm not Debo, so you don't have to take a drink. But here's a pack of unopened cover scats because I needed to re-up in green pumpkin. So you'll see this is the 4-inch size of the cover scat in green pumpkin. The bait is made with a notch in the top. So what's cool is this notch kind of tells you the size of hook that you need. But also the bottom dictates where the bend of the hook, the chin comes out. So you're gonna come out here. You've got that slit in the entire back of the bait, but your hook is gonna come out somewhere in the range of here and then tuck into this notch. So the 4-inch wants a 5-aught, the 3.5-inch wants a 4-aught, the 2.5-inch wants a 2 to 3-aught hook. Fantastic bait. It's interesting. It's a do nothing, the original poop style bait, and because I've had such good luck on it, I've been more open to trying other poo style baits since trying this bait. So it's essentially a craw with its claws in, a defenseless crawdad, as opposed to a defensive craw that has its claws standing straight up, right? Like you'd have on a Ned rig or a bunch of other craw style baits. This is an unassuming crawdad, which is awesome, right? And so it has a little bit of like a wiggle or shimmy. It's not that same fluttering down that you have with the Senko. This is more of like a shimmy down, and then it will rest on bottom. And as you twitch it up or pull the slack out, it will jump up and then it will walk and then kind of shimmy back down. It'll jump up and then shimmy back down. And you can walk it in place. Some baits do this better than others, but the cover scat does a really good job of it. So I definitely recommend it. If you haven't tried the cover scat, you need to try it. So yeah, the last year and a half, almost 2 years, it's been a great bait for me. I did try all sizes. The 2.8 just like with the bellows gill, the 2.8, um, caught small fish 90% of the time. As I sized up, cover scat goes to a 3.5. The bellows gill goes to a 3.8. The cover scat would catch medium sized fish the majority of the time. The bellows gill 3.8 for me is kind of that sweet spot where I will catch big fish, I will catch medium sized fish, and occasionally smaller fish. Um, as I went up to the 4-inch cover scat, it just weeded out a little bit of the smaller fish, but caught bigger fish as well. So the bellows gill jumps from a 3.8 to a 5.8. I haven't really tried that bait. Um, and don't have a lot of interest because I think I'm just not going to catch a lot of fish on it. I live in Colorado. I don't have a ton of fish north of 4 pounds here. Um, so I'm not trying to catch megas, right? I want to appeal to the larger than average size fish, 3 to 5 pounds, 3 to 6 pounds, maybe even the occasional giant fish. Um, so keep that in mind. JP, yes and no. So I have evolved to using a screw lock more often than not. The owner offset hook. I think I've got my terminal tackle box here. I hope I've got the right hook in here, but I'll let you know. Because owner has a few hooks that I like. Some have wider gaps than others. And this is not necessarily the hook that I'm looking for, but if you want particular advice, I will share it with you after this stream. So if you want, I'll go ahead and rig one of the 4-inch on this hook right here, but I prefer more of an offset worm hook as opposed to an EWG. So I don't even have a great example sitting right here, but I'll show you this hook right here. So this has a little bit of a deeper bend to it. And believe it or not, it's a trocar. I thought it was owner. It's not owner. That said, I do love trocar as well. So I'll go ahead and rig this one up. I don't like the screw lock on trocar hooks nearly as much as I do owner. And that's because of the centering pin. It's very hard to get the centering pin right. And as you can see, this hook is not going to be quite big enough. I want to say this is a 4/0. So sucks to like halfway blow out the nose on this by using the screw lock. But there are various hooks that you can use. I would not say a swim bait style hook like what you get out of these guys. These are essentially the Magnum swim bait hooks from Trocar. Aha! Of course, we've got the ones sitting here underneath the rest. And these are the owner offset hooks that I was talking about. Okay. I've only got 2 sitting here, so of course they were kind of hiding below the rest, but let's go ahead and rig this up. Now, what's cool about the owner screw lock is that it pokes straight into the bait before you start screwing, okay? Now, of course, I've already halfway blown out the nose on this guy. And this hook is not quite big enough. So I want to say this is a 4/0. I want it to be a 5/0. You can see that there's not a ton of bite on this hook, but really you want it to be longer than that so that it can tuck into this notch on top of the bait. So a 5/0 or even a 6/0 hook is the right size on this. But what you get out of this is that shimmy fall where it's going to kind of wiggle to the bottom. Then as you set the hook, you do get enough bite out of this thing. Um, but you're not going to get snagged in as much stuff. That offset hook is, in my opinion, streamlined and has enough bite. So fuck it. I'm going to leave this rigged right now. I'm not going to unrig it. That type of hook is more what I tend to throw, but 4-inch is girthy, but it's my preferred size. Um, Somewhere I do have all the sizes and I could show you, but unfortunately, I don't know exactly where all of them are sitting right this second. So, also, unfortunately, I'm going to need to go pee real quick. I hope you guys all hang out for 2 minutes. We'll pour one more liquor, one more old tub for you. I'm not going to grab another beer, um, but we'll hang out for another 30 minutes or so. Um, if I can find my other cover scats, I will do that. If you guys have other questions that you want to ask or talk about, please think about it now. Ask me in 2 minutes, or go ahead and drop it in the comments now, and I will be right back. Okay. Appreciate y'all. Yo, I'm back. I'm just looking for my cover scats. My stuff is so all over the place that I don't know where. JDM swim baits. I don't know. Shite. Only 7 likes on the video so far. I actually don't care all that much, but thank you, Bink Nation. Please hit the thumbs up, everybody. I am back. Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. Yeah, JP, you need to give him another shot. All right. Now I will say, same goes for the Bellows Gill. These dudes, on a standard EWG, the nose can blow out and the tails can rip off really quickly. But they attract fish like no other bait. So you kind of need to give them a shot. Yeah, here I've got some 4-inch in a different color. I don't know where the other ones are, but I have them in the 2.8. I have them in the 3.5. I just throw the 4-inch a lot more and prefer it. I will throw them on a standard EWG, but the nose blows out quicker than the screw lock does. So keep that in mind. Scat style plastic stick baits by Depths. Which ones are you talking about? I'm not sure which soft plastic you're talking about because I have some of them, but I don't buy every bait from every manufacturer. So I hear you. Tell me which bait you're talking about. I don't know about that, dude. I wouldn't throw it on a flipping hook. What are you gonna snell it? 28 likes, JP. My man. I can't see because I'm in StreamYard right now, but all good. So personally, I'm still, fishing those newer bodies of water that are more convenient to where I've been working as of late. And chatterbaits have been doing it. I talked to you guys about this a couple lives ago, but it was the Thunder Cricket and then the Z-Man. What is their like flat-sided the Willow Vibe chatterbait that has done the trick for me more than others. Um, it's got a willow blade as the chatterbait or as the blade in front of the jig head, which is pretty sick. I've thrown both a 3-inch minnows from Z-Man as well as a Strike King Baby Z2 as the trailer. Those have been probably my most productive baits. And I'm about to start finessing them a little bit more as the water warms up. But the water where I am is still in the 40s for sure. I have not been able to really power fish. I've been slow rolling stuff. So the bellows gill is a delicate bait, but it gets bit. I'm right with you on that 1000%. A longer cover scat. Oh, maybe I've heard of that actually. And I'm actually not that interested. Um, I think a big part of what appeals about the cover scat is its profile, is the fact that it's a fat, densely, heavily salted bait that has the fall that it does. Um, I kind of want that condensed profile And even in a bigger 4-inch bait, I want it to fall fast, have that kind of shimmy fall to it, and I want to make it dart a little bit and then kill it. I don't want a longer bait that quote unquote does the same thing. That's not really what I want to do. The baby whale and their new minnow. Interesting. I've not thrown their new minnow style bait, and I haven't thrown the baby whale. I've only thrown the whale in its mid size, and I recently picked up the bigger sizes of it. I thought I threw it up on the wall, but I didn't. Um, the 6-inch whale I picked up recently, and I'm curious about that. It comes in 3 packs, so that's cool. But should be a good bait. But the baby whale, not really. As I said, I throw the 3-inch spark shad for Megabass, the 3-inch Z-Man minnows, and like a 2.8 or more often a 3.3-inch Kitech as my finesse swim baits, if you will. So the baby whale is not really in my arsenal. The jungle wide gap is not a flipping hook. Okay. I thought the jungle hook was a flipping hook, but maybe the jungle wide gap is not. The slender cover scat. Interesting. Let's go ahead and check it out. Oh, right. Yeah. So I did see this, and I'm not all that interested, right? Let me go ahead and show you what we're talking about here. This right here is this is indie fishing on Instagram, showing the cover scat slim, right? Um, the slender cover scat. This right here is a worm, not a cover scat, in my opinion. And so to me, it looks like a Nico rig bait, maybe a shaky head bait, but it's going to be heavily salted. So you could throw it on a wacky rig and it'd be just fine. So that is not necessarily up my alley, but so be it. To those people who want to throw it, go for it. Digs Outdoors is about to buy some baby whales. Yeah, bellows gill is one of those that I think a lot of people didn't necessarily want to get into, including myself, right? Um, and I threw it in multiple colors to start out with, multiple sizes. Um, Ultimately, the 3.8 is the size that I landed on. A 4 or 5-aught hook works really well. The thing collapses really well. The ribs on it are fantastic. I threw it weightless on a Texas rig. Um, it's an awesome bait. So if you find a body of water where they munch it, just throw that over and over and over. I'm with you, Dustin. Yeah, Nico rig, shaky head, wacky rig. Willow Vibe is killer. It's a very subtle chatterbait, kind of the flat side of chatterbaits, more so than the Thunder Cricket. Um, Very subtle profile, and it has no skirt. I think it's an awesome bait. 1/8 ounce peg sinker flipping or free rig. So I think a free rig would be awesome with the bellows gill. I like to throw it weightless. Um, but that's just me, to each their own. The bellows gill is an awesome bait. Um, Underrated bait, even still, to the point where I'm going to try other baits from Geek Crack, right? The bug pea is new to me in both sizes. The bellows gill swimmer I'm going to try, as well as the Spyron, and lastly the emo ripper. Now the emo ripper is their poo style bait. This is their heavy salt bait. And they make the emo kamushi and the new Q bomb, both of which appeal to me, but are different style baits, right? I was going to mention the Q bomb earlier because that is a Tackle Warehouse, or should I say, Bassmaster Classic release from Geek Crack is the Q bomb. Tackle Warehouse came out with it on Thursday, I don't know which day. And it sold out almost immediately. It is going to show up at other retailers soon, and it is like a dice rubber type of bait. So you got to keep that in mind. It's a drop shot bait with hairs coming out of it. It even got me to thinking, and I'll be honest, I had this thought process with the cover scat initially. So I don't know if this is a logical way of thinking, but I did thread some silicone through a finesse TRD. And make it hairy, if you will. And I did it in a few different ways. I just did it in the nose on this one. I also did it on the Dual Realis wriggle worm, which, in my opinion, is more of a wacky rig drop shot type of bait. I tried the wriggle worm a couple times last year and find that it doesn't stand up like most other Elastec baits. It is an awesome and super durable bait, but with the way that it's built, it does not want to stand up straight. So I just put silicone in the tips of it, and I'm going to wacky rig it in the middle. Let's kind of see what happens. But all these silicone baits are interesting. So Dustin, Geek Crack smells like Fritos / my boxer's feet. It does smell like Fritos. That is the first thing that comes to my mind. But the bass like it, and therefore I do too. I like the way a bass smells more than Geek Crack baits, but I'm with you, dude. Yeah, the Yamatanuki I only have in the smaller size right now. And I think I'm going to need to get the bigger size. I have a couple of these other poo baits that I waited for the bigger size to come out. Really wanted the bigger size, not the 2.5 or 3 inch, but really the 4 inch size. So I can't believe we're talking about poo baits and drop shot baits like exclusively right now, but it is what it is. Are you talking about a swimming worm or are you talking about a shaky style worm? Because they do make the bellows stick, and I have that in like the 5.8, maybe the 4.8 as well. They make it in like 4 different sizes. I've got it in the mid sizes, and it's a true, just like I mentioned earlier with that slender cover scat. It is a shaky head, Nico rig, uh, maybe wacky rig, and even potentially drop shot style worm. Um, Great bait, but I only have it in the mid sizes. And even the 5.8 feels like a big worm. Um, or maybe I have it in the 6.8, but still keep that in mind. Yep, I'm right there with you, Julie. That's what I did um, very recently. That's why I just showed you. Now the silicone is starting to kind of melt. Um, so I do wonder about that. I think you maybe need to keep it short, like you got here, because on the longer bait, look what happens. You got that silicone kind of bending and melting, acting funny, and I don't love that. It makes me want to trim this, um, or use different skirting material. Right? I mean, I am using fly tying material for this, but you could use any skirting material. Um, so any jig skirt material would work just fine. You don't need to use a round rubber per se, but I am with you, and I'm curious to kind of do it on my own before I buy the ones that are coming out now. And let me show you Emo Kamushi. Boom, there she is. So there's the Emo Kamushi stickworm. They make it in a 60 and a 95. If I search Kamushi, there we go. We've got 4 baits. The Q bomb is the Emo Kamushi Q bomb. You can see that these are all sold out. Comes with this ball core with a little tip to it, and all of this silicone coming out of it. Um, Interesting profile. Drop shot bait for sure, kind of like the dice rubber. And then they come out with the slim and the stick worm, and then the floating stick. So this floating stick is what made me think to go ahead and throw skirting material through um, a finesse TRD and just see what happens. They make it in a 40 and a 60. So the 40 would be like the BFS size, and the 60 would be almost more like a Ned rig size. But that's kind of what caught my attention and caused me to think to do that. So The Q bomb is brand new, um, and is a, let's say, Bassmaster Classic release. A virus on bath salts. Um, yep, it is wild for sure. Yeah, I hear you, Julie. I almost think you need to keep them separate. I don't know what the packaging looks like on the Q bomb or the Kamushi, but I don't think you can just set them with other Elastec style baits and expect them to keep their shape, right? Um, so keep that in mind. Michael Bradley, did you mention first gen earlier? I feel like you did, but I didn't respond to it. Let's go ahead and look it up. You said anyone tried the first gen copperhead bladed jig? Um, no, I have not, but let's take a look at it. So here's the copperhead bladed jig. And, a couple things that I notice about it are one, the blade to head connection is on a split ring. So I do not love that. Um, that has always been a thing for me. I want it to be on a vertical line tie. I want it to be a blade to head direct connection. So the split ring does not appeal to me, but these little copper head notches to it do appeal to me and make me curious just how much noise that makes underwater. I'm curious about it. Otherwise, the first gen, um, they make this top spin, right? I think Debo's talked about that before. Make a couple spinner baits and buzz baits as well. So double clacker. Um, I mean they look interesting enough. Let's see what people say about the bladed jig. It's got some good reviews. Three of them. Good action, good components. This bait hunts more than a jackhammer and is loud. Go when they need to see something different. Okay. Rides high in the water column. I counted it down to the bottom. As soon as I reel, it lifts straight to the surface. Okay. And then I did also notice here is the G Rat. G Rat's been coming out with a bunch of baits in the last year or two, but this is their classic release, is the Executioner. Um, Interesting bait, right? Um, Although if you look at it from the top, it looks a lot like a 6 cents whale, right? With these wings on the side. Now it does have a hook slot on top that looks great, but looks a lot like a 6 cents whale. And in the 6 inch, $13.99 for a 2-pack. So I am not particularly inclined to go ahead and grab it right now. Um, although I will say that Steve, no, his name's not Steve. I should know. Swim bait guy, big swim bait dude on the main market. He did a podcast with Chris Zaldane on the Bilge podcast recently. Why am I not thinking of him? Not Ben Milliken. Stop it. Um, he is sponsored by G-Rat right now. And he's a big time swim baiter. Has done remarkably well on the West Coast as a pro, but is talking big about G-Rat. Loves the Sneaky Pete and loves the new Executioner. Now that said, it is essentially a new version of the Mag Draft Freestyle or the Dangerous Unloaded or the 6 Cents. Yes, Steve Kennedy, thank you. Steve Kennedy, JP, in the clutch. Thank you, JP. We have this eelish, snakish type of animal in my home lake. Looks like a snake with a dorsal ridge down its back. Want to carve one up and use it for a blank of an open pore mold. Interesting, dude. Use a swimming worm to start out with. Or a 7 to 10 inch, curly tail worm. Use a big paddle tail swim bait and swim it toward the surface, either weightless or with a lightweight EWG swim bait style hook. See what happens, dude. Have you not tried that yet? Have you seen fish eat this type of animal, if you will? And are you sure it's not a muskrat? I think if you throw a wake bait in the summertime, you're going to get munched. So you might just need to wait for the water to warm up and see what happens when the water is warm and fish at nighttime, and you'll get whacked, dude. So think about that. Throw a wake bait in the summer. Yeah. So we've been on 2 hours and 8 minutes, guys. We're running not late, but I think we'll probably sign off here in a few minutes. Unless you guys have specific questions, feel free to throw them at me. Let's get a little fast action going on, and let's sign off here in the next few minutes. You've tried all of that. The fish goes gaga over the animal. Really? You've tried worms, swim baits, wake baits, top waters. Fish don't blink an eye. All right. Well, that's fascinating. Well, what about trying like a top water glide bait or walking bait? Does it really have a snake type of action? Um, it makes me curious on what type of baits would be most appropriate for that. So let's go ahead and take a quick peek There's the provoke that I talked about. I think I want the silent more than anything. The Great Lakes finesse juvie craw does appeal to me. I'll probably throw my own hook or tube jig in there, but it's interesting that they label some of these as floating and some not, right? This is a fat tube style bait. Jackal drift fry looks good. Although very specialized bait. I think Punch was talking about this toward the end of Debo's stream tonight, but interesting bait nonetheless. There it is right there. Provoke 97 silent. Milliken's Matt Minnow. That is like what would be right up my alley. There's the party minnow. I think Julie was talking about that earlier. Bayfuel, Berkeley. You know, Debo talked about this line earlier. The big game is now fluorocarbon and braid, which is fascinating. This wacky shot is wacky for sure. Dirty jigs, tactical bastion. There's the G-Rat executioner that I was talking about. Kamakatsu. Gambler frog. Doesn't that look like a freaking... That looks more like a spro frog than anything, but Great Lakes finesse, Helgramite, and then some underspins. New colors of the snack craw. Headhunter, Jackal, new colors of the Dare Coop. We can just kind of fly through this stuff. Mock baits. That looks like a good fluke. Not available yet. Bait Fuel Spanky. Northland Tackle. That's a Smeltinator. We've seen that. And Spro, the Zero Swimmer is probably what appeals to me more than anything. And the Excite Baits Top Water. If you didn't notice, I commented on that on Debo's stream. The Excite Baits Top Water looks a lot like the Rico and the Splash It from Don Iovino. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Tom Mix, no problem, dude. You have a great rest of your night. I'm getting out of here too, dude. So hope you've had a good one. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button for me. Do me that favor. I did drop the link to Discount Tackle in the description of this video. And I would appreciate it if you're interested in checking any of this out. There's a spring classic sale going on, 20% off of all of these baits. So Z-Man, Yozuri, Crush City, Rapala, Berkeley, and Rapala. You can get a jackhammer for $12.79. That's a deal and a half. And most colors are in stock right now. In fact, all colors are in stock. So, yeah. Z-Man, 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 Rapala, Berkeley. We could talk about everything that is in stock and that I recommend, but that could take all night. So click the link in the description below if you're interested in checking out any discounted tackle from discounttackle.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for hanging out. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.